Sapien.
Hello again. Welcome back to the Sapien podcast. We got a good one today with Ashleigh VanHouten. She's the muscle maven on Instagram. She wrote a book called It Takes Guts. It's really great. Talks about all about eating organ meats, eating nose to tail, like we love here at Sapien. What else we got, Gary?
Yeah, I think it's such an important episode. Me and Brian are always focused on promoting our approach to nutrition, and we think it's so important, especially in the female population, and it should be said. And I think Ashleigh does a great job as an example of someone who is finding their optimal health using an animal-based diet approach, a whole foods-based diet. I think she's an inspiration for so many young girls. And honestly, for me and anyone listening, I think she's great. Her social media platform is great. She provides so much excellent information. And I think you guys are going to really love this episode.
She's awesome. She has her own podcast, Muscle Maven Radio. And she also lifts weights. Man, she gets in there and does the squats. She hits the gym. She's the real deal. So enjoy this episode. And again, we have no sponsors other than our own offerings, which is Evolve Healthcare. Dr. Gary has a clinic in Los Angeles. You can also see him remotely. We have the Sapien program, sapien.org. Sapien Tribe, actually, forgot to mention the first one, Sapien Tribe. I just had a call today with some Sapien Tribe members. It was really fun. So you can join us for the Zoom calls and all the other content. We have a private site, basically.
And don't forget to support Brian, you guys, nosetotale.org. Excellent meat, excellent even skincare products. He's really doing a great job, really leading the charge on, really a thoughtful approach to animal products, foods, and just your overall health. So support Brian, nosetotale.org, join our tribe. If you want to learn more, get on that Sapien program, and you can check me out at evolvehealthcare.com. Without further ado,
here's Ashleigh. All right, we're live. We're back with Sapien Podcast, one of our first guests of our season 3. We have Ashleigh VanHouten. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Absolutely. And we have Dr. Gary calling in from LA.
Hey, everyone. Excited to be here. Ashleigh, I'm so excited to talk to you. I actually been following you for a while, and I checked out some of your books, and we'll definitely get into it. But I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Message. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So a little more context. I met Ashleigh in Toronto. We had a meetup maybe almost 2.5 years ago when I was up there doing my track meet. We were filming for Food Lies and Ben Pakulski as well. I had Ben on the show. You came with Ben. Mm-hmm. And that was great. That was awesome. So yes, I've been following you since then as well. And I have your book. It Takes Guts. So this is really cool because it's all about nose to tail eating. And Dr. Gary and I are all about that. And so
good.
Let's jump into some stuff. How did you even get into nose to tail eating? It seems like kind of a not a well-known thing, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, it's certainly niche in kind of like North American circles, I would say. But as you guys know, like I'm kind of preaching to the choir a little bit here because I don't have to convince you guys, but nose to tail eating was the only way to eat for everyone until very recently. Like it's only really in like North American and maybe some other cultures that we have the very bizarre privilege to eat vegan or to eat weird, fake, made-up foods, or to choose only this select piece of an animal to eat and give away the rest or throw away the rest. Like that was never an option before. So we're living in, as you guys know, a very bizarre time in sort of food history, where eating the way our ancestors ate, eating the way that our bodies crave, and eating in a sustainable way is actually odd and rare. But with that said, I didn't grow up eating necessarily nose to tail. I didn't grow up eating organ meats. So no one can come at me with that excuse as to why they can't try, because I also did not do that. But looking back, even before I kind of cared about nutrition, I always gravitated towards high protein, towards meat, towards unique types of foods. I was always kind of adventurous, I suppose, in that way. And I didn't realize really until later that was kind of extra unique as a woman, to be honest, to be just, you didn't have to convince me to like eat a lot of meat and eat a lot of protein. I never bought into that, like, this is fattening, this is bad for me, I need to eat just salads all day. Like, that was never kind of my vibe. So it was always, that was sort of an easy sell. And then when I got into as a career, I was a journalist and learning about nutrition and fitness, and I was writing for different magazines. And then later when I got my own podcast and all of these things, I kind of came at food from like an ancestral health, sort of paleo primal approach. And after a few years of kind of doing that, the sort of textbook way, I started researching more about how can I do this in a way that is really sort of sustainable, as ethical as possible, as nutritious as possible. And so I started thinking about organ meats, and I kind of dipped my toes in a little bit. And I was sharing a little bit on social media, and like, of course, I tell everybody I was getting like mostly barf emojis, but every once in a while I'd get somebody who's like, what are you doing? Like, what is that? And how would I go about doing that? And I realized that there was kind of a niche of like, there's a group of people who, of course, are already into eating animals, looking for nutrient dense foods, who just don't have access to the information about how to source these foods, prep these foods, why they're healthy, what different organs do different things, whatever. And so I saw that there was like a need for a select group of people to kind of just be introduced to this. And that's what it is. It's an introduction. There's a lot of different recipes and information in that book, but it's nothing that the novice person who's willing to experiment can't do. So yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it.
I
That's
love it.
great.
I mean, one of the things that I'm always looking for, I don't know how much Brian told you about me, but I have a medical practice here in Los Angeles, and I kind of have the same mission. I'm trying to educate people how to eat normal human food, right? How to see through the kind of mess of a food system and try to pick things out and retrain yourself how to cook. I come at it from a perspective of, actually, I'm a Russian immigrant, and I grew up with these foods traditionally. My grandparents cooked them for me. I then pulled away from them, and then through a very similar journey after my training with Brian, came back to ancestral health and ancestral eating. And every day I go deeper and deeper. And the biggest challenge is not just educating people about eating meat or eating animal food or nutrient density, because I actually think that's really coming. It's people are becoming aware of things like intermittent fasting, which in my mind connect to eating a nutrient dense diet, right? All of these things, people come to me that they're interested. The biggest challenge is like how to cook, how to purchase foods, right? There's so few resources. So I really commend you, because I think it is a huge need, and it's not just you. We need more and more of that, because people are so disconnected from what to purchase in a store that is not full of chemicals or has not been highly processed, and then how to transform that into something that's palatable and delicious and looks like dinner, right? And then you have this, I think, as a woman, it's an even more powerful message, because in my eyes too, I see so many young girls and young women struggling because they're really not eating healthy, nutrient dense foods. Specifically, definitely not enough protein, really avoiding fats, really leaning into these processed things. It's really sad. And I know there's a few folks in the community really trying to kind of push that message. And I just don't, I think it's so important, because, I think it's easy to convince a dude that eating steak is good. I think that convincing them to eat liver and oysters and some of this other stuff we're going to talk about is challenging. But it's definitely even hard to get a young girl to think, wow, this steak is good for me. This liver will help me be more fertile and get through pregnancy. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that. But man, that is such a huge challenge. Just in the public eye, but also as a clinician who's trying to promote a healthy diet. I'm just like, what do I do? So now, I have a tool. You created a tool, and I commend you for that. I love it. I love it.
I really appreciate that. And I have a lot of empathy as much as I have frustration for, dealing with female, clients. So if I'm working in like a health coaching capacity, and then also just through like the podcast and through, information I'm trying to give out with the books, you're right. And we all live in sort of a bubble where, we tend to be in a community where this isn't as much of a deal. But in the greater world, it's fascinating to me that we women are still being marketed to so heavily around the like morality of what to eat, so much more than men, and also what it will do to us in terms of femininity. Like if you eat meat, that's masculine, that's heavy, that's fattening, that's unhealthy, all of these things that just doesn't exist for men. And so my second book that's coming out in February, it's called Carnivore-ish. And what I really wanted to do with that is, ultimately, at the end of the day, this book is just healthy, whole food recipes that have meat in them. It's not anything crazy or extreme. But that if you say that, that's not going to sell books. So, I gave it Carnivore-ish, the term, because it's meat heavy, and also because it's two women. My friend is my co-author, two women who are writing a book mostly about meat that is also catering towards women who tend to be the people who buy groceries in a household. They tend to generally more often be the people prepping food for their families and things like that. And, when I did research on like meat heavy cookbooks, they're all like men who barbecue, like here's a big bloody steak. And, I have no problem with that, but obviously they're not speaking to women, and women are going to gloss right over those, walk into the health food section. That's all vegan cookbooks, just pictures of acai bowls everywhere and salads with no protein in them. And it's still like somehow this revolutionary thing that like women, we're going to be just open about the facts of nutrition, and that you need food to fuel your body. It's not about how restrictive can you be and still survive. Like we need to reframe this to like, how can we eat to nourish our bodies and enjoy ourselves and, build muscle and function and optimally, rather than like how little can we get away with and still like get through the day. It's crazy.
I think we need a worldwide coalition of women, just females promoting this stuff. And we kind of are. I try to have them on my podcast, Dr. Jamie Seaman, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon,
Mm-hmm.
even our mutual friend, Christy Storchik,
Mm-hmm.
who we all know
Strong
up in the Toronto area. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's awesome. She just posted today. I love it. She posted a big steak with some, sides, what was like a little asparagus and onions or something. She's
Yeah.
like, women, let's go. This is good food.
Shout out to Christy. I went to her place like last, I think, September, and we did like an epic workout in her garage gym and went in the sauna and had like a delicious meat meal. And we met, I think just through this community online. I'm trying to remember exactly how we met, but you're right. It's a relatively small community of women, and we kind of all know each other at this point because, we're the ones out there saying like, eat meat, it's good for you. There's not that many of us. Yeah.
It's great. We're gonna continue it on, and then your new book, Carnivore-ish. Dr. Gary and I love that because, I'm not into just saying, oh, I'm a carnivore, but it's like Sapien is carnivore-ish, right? That's what we believe in. And I just actually don't even think. Well, I wish the carnivore crowd would just kind of be more accepting. It's like we don't need to be 100% carnivore, guys. Calm down. We need to be carnivore-ish. We can eat an animal-based diet. You're not gonna like drop dead if you eat a blueberry. Like this is insane.
But the thing is, that doesn't get attention. That's the problem, because so much of what we are trying to do as individuals and information gatherers is communicating it to people. And so much of this, unfortunately, especially with the last couple of years, is being done online. And we know that people want provocative stuff. They want clickbait. They want divisiveness. They want something that's going to get people pissed off and sharing it and all of these things. So to say, like, let's do this moderately and like have individualized nutrition and like just eat plants and animals that work for us. Like nobody's buying that. People want like, if you eat a blueberry, you're an asshole. Or, if you eat meat, you're an asshole. Like that's what people respond to. And I struggle with this all the time because the organ meat thing was kind of finally my niche, that people were just like, oh, okay, you're a weirdo. Let's pay attention to it for a minute. But besides that, I try to educate about moderation, and about the most important thing is understanding yourself as an individual and what you want. Because my perfect meal, like if we're all eating primal, sapien, carnivore-ish type meals, all three of our plates might still look different. And that's fine because we're different people and we have different goals, and maybe we're different ages or have different health challenges or whatever it is. But people don't respond to moderation and do the work and figure it out. Like people just want to be told one crazy thing and go with it.
And it's a little bit of like having to fight fire with fire, right? Because in the kind of the general public, the push is for plant food, right? So I feel like carnivore was a community that kind of came to be because it was the opposite of that, right? It's sort of the opposite of vegan. And I think there's a huge message there. And, I've been a little bit critical of it because I think that it is a tool and not sort of a lifestyle. It is not like the all-encompassing concept of what healthy eating is, but it's certainly like a powerful tool, and it's certainly a way to get people to think more openly. I do think like the nose to tail message, the eating guts, teaching people what offal is. We have another colleague that also has a book, I think very similar, but with a different angle, Dr. Bill Schindler. I just read that, really great. And I just think all of these little pieces are coming together, but the real story is like, I think it's ancestral eating. It's understanding what we ate for so long, not even just like hunter-gatherer, but just, before 100 years ago, before these corporations and this large processing systems really took over. And I think it's all these different angles to try to educate people about that. And it's not sexy. It's not a sexy conversation. It's a nuanced conversation. It's in a conversation about, let's re-understand how salt works. Let's reinterpret fat. Let's rethink even bread. Let's go back to our ancestors, but not like old ancestors, but just, your great grandparents. What did they eat? It seems so, I think it's so simple, but nuanced. It's not sexy. It takes a little bit of like, man, dang, it's like there's a moment where it clicks, and I think that's such a hard message to. So I do think that people in the space, they, and I love it. They, hey, I'm going to promote organ meat, or hey, I'm going to be carnivore, and it gets attention, and it's better than nothing. But obviously I think the goal is all of us really create a unified message of like, we should fix our agriculture system and teach people about how micronutrients actually work, and, how to process food in a natural way and not, toxic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're saying, like it's simple, but it's not easy within the context of the modern world, because it's fine for some of us who have kind of dedicated our lives to learning about this and sharing it with other people. We don't live the same life as people who, have maybe super stressful jobs and maybe, I don't know, more limited budgets, and they don't have access to the same information, and they haven't been taught this, and they haven't been encouraged to do this. And so it's very simple to write down the rules of like, here's how you should eat and be and work out and live, and it will drastically improve most people's health. But when you live in a world where you are exhausted and you have no time, and fast food is everywhere and delicious and super cheap, and we have a food culture here in North America where everything should be super cheap, immediately available, very easy to make, take no time. That's another thing that has changed from our ancestors. It's not just what we ate, but like the whole culture around eating. Like people, like in earlier generations, spent a greater proportion of their income on food. And that wasn't something that they were pissed off about, because it was a very important part of their life and day-to-day, experience. And they spent way more time cooking together, eating together, enjoying food together. And again, that's something that other cultures still do a lot better than we do. But now it's like we expect that every meal should taste like the best thing that they've ever eaten, and it should be super cheap, and like somebody else should make it real quick for them. And, and again, I'm not like, I'm not trying to like judge individuals. Like we're all in this together. This is hard for everybody. Like we all make these mistakes. But I think that if we, like you said, sort of started to reframe like what's important in our lives within our own abilities and resources, we can all maybe make some different choices in our spending. We can all maybe take some more time to learn how to prep things and cook things and enjoy it with our families and sit down and eat instead of eating in front of our phones and all of those things. Those are all things that we can work on a little bit at a time within our own lives to start making this a little bit easier for us, you know?
I love that. And I just had an idea. I always think graphically. Maybe it's my
Mm.
engineering days, or I think in like high level, trying to put stuff together. But everything you're saying is amazing. We want everything to be quick and cheap and fast as possible. And then you're talking about the people who, like us, are in our community who spend time and spend money on food, and we're the healthy ones. I was just thinking of this very linear relationship between how much of your time and budget is spent on food and how healthy you are. And
Mm.
the people who are the unhealthiest in society seem to spend the least money and least time on food. This is a classic person pulling through McDonald's. The cheapest, fastest food, least healthy. The people you're talking about other cultures. I just interviewed Mark Schatzker. He wrote The Durian Effect, and now he wrote The End of Craving.
Mm.
A lot of content about Italy. They're
Mm.
eating all kinds of foods. They're eating pasta. I mean, it's not a big part of their diet. He's debunking that myth. It's actually very heavy in animal foods: butter,
Mm-hmm.
cream, dairy, organ
Fish.
meats, all this stuff. Yes, fish. But they're spending time. It's a culture. They're not just like, oh man, I'm going to make something in 2 seconds and scarf it down. They're like, we're going to eat together. We're going to prepare this together. And these are the healthy people. So even though they're eating supposedly rich foods that, even with some pasta and some bread, they're making the bread themselves. They're making the pasta themselves. They have a culture around it. They're not overeating. I think this energy, even if you think of food as just, I just need to scarf something delicious down, that you're going to eat more. You're not going to eat the right foods, and you're going to eat more of it. So the Italians, like, they can eat rich foods, but they're not eating all the time, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
snacking, and they're not pulling through McDonald's. It's like you eat a satisfying meal, and it's an experience, and then you're done, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't eat for a while. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I just think this linear relationship between the value we put on food. So the value is time or money. Like you were saying, it's either the time you spend doing it, or just how much you spend on it, is really related to your health.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you see those like memes where it's like, $100 for organic food is ridiculous, but $100 to go have some drinks is reasonable. And like, I don't want
Yeah.
to spend an hour starting my new job, but I'll spend an hour on Netflix. Like, again, this can come across as quite judgy because we all have different backgrounds and challenges and obstacles and things like that. But I think what we're saying here is the amount that you invest into yourself, that's going to come back out and within our own individual sort of framework. Like, not everybody has the resources or the availability or like the money or whatever to eat perfectly all the time. And even those of us, some people who do, still don't eat perfectly all the time because we're human beings and we're not perfect. I think we do have this tendency to get overwhelmed and think if it can't be perfect, then screw it, And I talk about in the book, and I know like Diana Rogers has spoken about this before, that people don't like to hear it, but conventional meat, conventional beef, nobody likes the way that's produced. Nobody likes how that comes into our hands in our grocery stores. But straight up health wise, it's still better than eating this uber expensive processed weird faux meat bullshit and just eating like a straight up vegan diet for most people. So if you cannot go to a local farmer's market in LA and get straight from the farm and talk to the farmer and you get like the best quality, grass finished, whatever, you can still make choices within what is available to you that's going to be better for your health. So yeah, that's kind of another argument that I think people make where they're like, well, I can't eat perfectly all the time. It's like, yeah, nobody can. We just have to do the
Just
best we
get
can with what's
You can get
available.
ground beef from Walmart. Get ground beef from Walmart. Get a bunch of eggs. If you really are on that big of a budget, we have a friend, Dr. Eric Westman. He's reversed diabetes, hundreds of pounds of weight loss through Walmart ground beef and Walmart eggs. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
it
Well,
is a possibility.
I mean, look, a lot of people are on a budget. This is a common misconception, I think, that if you buy into the concept that we're talking about, that you have to go and now procure everything that is sustainably raised and grass fed, grass finished. One thing I teach people is that's not a reality for most. Like, even for myself, it's very hard to stay on top of it. Our food system and our environment is so broken that it's just like you have to work really, really hard to eat super clean. one of the biggest messages I have is you don't fight that, factory farming system by being vegan, right? You fight
Yes.
it by trying to eat the healthiest diet possible, and when you can, supporting a local farmer, supporting regenerative agriculture practices, whether it's plants or animals, it doesn't matter, right? So I think that's really important, that it's like, you don't have to do it all, that it's just understanding it and then starting to bring in little things. And one of the things I think that is really misunderstood is the organ meat, right? So organ meat tends to be the cheapest cut, right? In fact, the word we use for organ meat, and I know you kind of introed in your book, I think it's great, the term offal generally means things that are not going
Left
to be eaten,
over. Yeah.
left over, but that's not true, right? That's a misconception. So what I would love, I have a lot of kind of people that listen to Sapien, they're still getting into this space, they're always looking for practical stuff. So you know many folks that are listening are for sure already on the animal based concept, but how does one get started with something like liver? Because, and again, I grew up eating liver, it's easy breezy, I love it, I look forward to it. But for yourself, you mentioned you kind of came into it later in life. So how did you start? Like, where, was it just going to the grocery store, getting some frozen liver, or like, where did you start?
Mm-hmm.
I think would be so helpful for folks.
Yeah, I have lots of ideas for how people can start. And I think that like the first just basic piece of advice is like start gently and slowly and give yourself a break. If you're a little bit freaked out at first, you do not have to go from eating like a conventional diet to like raw liver like some of these crazy people on the internet are doing. You don't have to go from 0 to 100. Like some pieces of advice I give people is like, maybe first go, if you're going out to restaurants, look for some of these different cuts of meat and order them at a restaurant. Have a professional who knows how to make it taste good and eat it that way first. So get tongue tacos, get pho, like go to Vietnamese restaurants, go to African and Middle Eastern restaurants where they have different cuts and different types of meat, and have somebody who knows what they're doing make it so you can taste what it tastes like when it's good and well prepared. So that's like a first thing. And then I would say, if you're worried about things like texture and flavor and you're freaked out and you have like one sad memory of liver and onions from childhood that was like traumatizing for you, you also don't have to start with liver. Like liver is the king organ that everyone talks about because it is the most nutrient dense. Bang for your buck, it's the best option. But organs in general are more nutrient dense and healthier. So maybe opt for some cuts that are texturally and taste-wise more pleasing. So I'd say heart is a really, really good place to start because it's a muscle meat. It's an organ, but it's also muscle. So it has this like beefy texture that meat eaters may already be familiar and comfortable with. It has a milder flavor. It may still taste a little bit more strong or like gamey than like regular muscle meat, but it's much more mild in flavor. Tongue is another delicious one that is, if people didn't have to prep it and like look at it in its original form, everyone would eat tongue because it is the most delicious meat. It's so good. So yeah, you don't have to start with liver if you don't want to. And then another piece of advice I would give people is start small. And by that, I mean literally the animal. So go get chicken or duck liver, turkey liver, hearts from those animals. Go with lamb. Smaller animals tend to have a milder flavor and also a flavor that is like reminiscent of the rest of the animal. So like a lamb heart kind of has a lamby flavor. And if you like lamb, that's great. And chicken liver is much milder tasting than beef or buffalo liver. So get those smaller animals and make them in recipes that you enjoy or whatever, like pepper them in here and there, and work your way up to the bigger animals. Another piece of advice I would give is I have no problem with people kind of hiding it if they want, like the same way that we grew up and our parents forced us to eat vegetables by like covering it in cheese or something. Hide your organ meat in the food that you already like. So I have a ton of recipes in the book that are essentially ground heart, kidney, liver, whatever, with your ground beef. And then you make your meatballs, your burgers, your sausages, whatever you already like to eat. And it's just a little bit more nutrient dense because you're doing it in like I usually recommend like a 4-to-1 ratio of like beef to organs so that you're barely going to notice, if at all, a difference in the texture and the flavor, but you're getting more nutrient dense meat. I mean, that's just like off the top of my head. There are so many ways, but yeah, you can, and you can also start by going to, again, the grocery store that you normally go to. Chances are probably has some of these things. You just literally didn't see it because you weren't looking for it. People look right over the section that has the giblets and the gizzards and the tripe and the heart and all of those things because you're not ever looking for them. But generally, you can probably find some stuff. And I know like Whole Foods has beef liver and marrow bones. My regular grocery store has chicken hearts and chicken livers. And you can go to, if you don't have access to farmer's market or something like that, try different like ethnic grocery stores, go to Asian markets, go to like, again, Middle Eastern, African, like most, I would think most middle to big cities have some of these places if they have any kind of community, you know? And so go check out those places where, again, these foods are not strange to them and they'll have all kinds of access to it. And they'll also be more likely to know about these foods and answer questions for you. When I was prepping for this book, I had to do a lot of like research and experimentation. A lot of these recipes, I had never bought a brain or a tongue or blood before, and I had to go seek these things out and go to butcher shops and make friends with people. And I got some weird looks and whatever, but I also got lots of people who were happy to answer my questions and talk to me because this is their life, this is their livelihood, and they want people to learn about it too. So just kind of be open to like new experiences and experiment, and you know, start small, be gradual, work your way into it, and you might be surprised at the things you enjoy and the things that the pleasure that you find in it, you know?
Oh
I
man, so
love
much
it.
good advice.
Yeah.
That was really good advice, especially just going to a restaurant and ordering it. I didn't even think about that. Have the pro do it first. I have another one is you're up north in Ontario, but
Mhm.
carnicerias down here, like most there's mostly, you know, Mexican markets available in the United States. They have all these cuts. They use them all. I was just in Mexico. This is natural. Yes, you get tacos. It was all the organs mixed in. You have all the tripe, you have the tongue, you have everything. So that's another good one. I want to
Yeah.
know specifically with liver. Let's give people a few more ways to eat liver. I'll start with a couple that I like. I can eat it raw. I like to cut it up into small little pieces, and you kind of just like swallow it.
Yes,
That's
I was
one way.
referencing you for the crazy person eating raw liver meat.
Well, I also did it in Africa with yeah, the hadza, and I ate it straight out of the little like dik and I ate it out of goat.
But that makes more
But
sense than frozen liver to me.
That's
Because
true.
that's like raw, like that's primal. You're really eating it.
oh,
When
it's
you
still warm. Yeah.
when you're freezing it, you're just sneaking it in there. You're like, whoop, I got a
Well, you
little.
don't have to freeze it. Nor or what I'll do is if I'll get some liver and eat a bunch raw, fresh, not frozen, just swallow it, just to get that like really raw. Like before cooking it, it's just better to get the nutrients, and then I'll cook it. So here's my one, and then I'll let Ashley go. I figured this out because eating liver cold is a huge tip. I just remembered this. My mom used to eat liverwurst on some kind of bread with pickles and cheese.
Mm.
So I was like, wait a second, I'm onto something. So I fried liver in some bacon fat, put it in the fridge. Then I took it out later and ate it with pickles and cheese, and it's so good. Cause
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like I'm usually am not a huge fan of liver. That's the one way I can eat it, and I'll eat it. You know, I'm not trying to swallow it to get it
Yeah.
done. I'm eating it.
Enjoying it. Yeah. That's delicious. That's so good.
Uh, a lot of organ meats are eaten in cold fashion, right? Like cold sausages that have organ meats. Tongue is traditionally
Mm-hmm.
boiled, sliced, and eaten as like a cold, like lunch meat almost.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's been really lost in American culture. I guess North American is a fair way to say it, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, before Ashley jumps in, like I grew up Russian, and this was like every morning, every breakfast. You know, I feel bad for anyone who's never had a beautiful like sliced tongue with the garlic embedded in there. And again, you eat it cold, hopefully on like a little like fermented sourdough bread with some, you know, grass fed butter. That's like a perfect little meal. And um, you know, one thing I wanted to add is me and my dad make pate. And it's so easy. You can take some liver, some spleen, some pancreas. You cook it up, boil it up. There's different ways you prepare it. and you just blend it up with a little bit of oil. And my dad's secret is he puts a little bit of honey, like local
Mm.
raw organic honey. The sweetness cuts sort of the irony richness
Mm-hmm.
of the organ meats, and a little bit of the sweetness goes a long way, and it really transforms the dish. It's little things like that, I think, that are, and then you might, in a carnivore space, someone might, why are you putting honey with your meat? Well, that's how you do it. This is traditional cultural stuff, and I think that's what people are really looking for. I think people are
Mm-hmm.
opening their eyes to this, but how do you do it? How do you do
That's
it? And I love the idea of going to a store. I send people to the Peruvian, like we have Peruvian
mm,
restaurants, and one of their traditional foods are hearts on a skewer, grilled hearts on a
yes.
skewer. That's a great intro. So
Yeah,
those are
yeah.
some ideas.
I've got that I've got a version of that in this book, and I have a version of that in the new book because yeah, it's delicious. But I mean, you guys already hit on it. Like frying anything in butter is going to make it delicious, right? I mean, another thing that I like to do is whatever kind of liver I'm eating, like fry it in, again, a lot of butter or ghee, wrap it in prosciutto, wrap it in bacon, wrap it in, Canadian peameal bacon, whatever. You can fry it and bread it. So I have like, it's like pork rind breading, right? You can get, a lot of these companies have it, or just some kind of gluten-free breading if you're into that. That's
Rice
like
breadcrumbs.
nut based or whatever. You get a little egg yolk and you drop it in there, and then you fry it again. Butter, delicious. And I find like I have a couple of those recipes that are sort of like breaded and fried. And Brian, that's what I do is I'll do that and I'll have a couple while it's fresh, and then I put it in the fridge, and then I'm just like popping them. They're sort of like, it's like popcorn chicken kind of deal, except it's liver and it's way better. So those are some options. I have a really, really good chicken liver mousse that is probably the most popular recipe in the book because it's easy, but it's also very crowd pleasing. Like kids will eat this. You can put this on a charcuterie board, and like people who would never say they'd eat organ meats will crush this and enjoy it. And again, it's chicken liver with like some shallots and maybe a little bit of booze, but like cream and butter. Like it, nothing tastes bad when it's full of cream and butter. Let's be real. So yeah, I have a chopped liver recipe in there. But another argument, and I always kind of throw this in there are so many ways to enjoy food, and it's kind of lazy to just say across the board like a food is gross. You got to figure out a way to make it work for you. With that said, there are some people who are never going to tolerate kidney or liver, or in my case broccoli. Like I have no time for that. Like my life is too short to try to make broccoli taste good for me, but like if we look again at food as fuel as well as pleasure, food should be pleasurable, but it doesn't have to be hyper palatable and like immensely pleasurable all the time. Sometimes you eat, like you said, sometimes you swallow some liver because you know it is incredibly nourishing and good for your health. And so to some people who are like, I can't get down with any kind of meat, any kind of organ meat, it's all, the idea is just disgusting. It's like, yeah, the idea of Brussels sprouts are disgusting too. And I grew up like with boiled, like nobody likes boiled Brussels sprouts, but you figure out a way to make them that it's delicious because they're healthy and they're good for you. No one tells you like, oh, most vegetables in their plain state are gross, so just never eat a vegetable in the mainstream culture, right? No one's saying that. They're saying figure out a way to make it palatable because it's good for you, and eat it because you're an adult. And that's what I say to people ultimately, where I'm like, look, if you can't find a recipe in here that you enjoy, I'm sorry, but I mean, also, if you're really investing in your health, like you're an adult, not everything needs to taste like chocolate cake. Like just get it done, and you don't have to eat that much. That's the other thing we talk about with like the nutrient density of organ meats. For people, even people who eat meat and want to maybe have less of a carbon footprint or want to eat less meat for whatever reason, the best way to do that is to eat organ meats, because a couple ounces of liver goes a long way. You do not need to eat 12 ounces of liver for dinner every day. You can throw a couple ounces in there once a week and you're getting plenty, right? So you don't have to eat a ton of it to get the benefits.
Very true. It's little goes a long way. That's the whole thing. What about building muscle? So I love this when women just embrace meats and also embrace muscle. Again,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gabriel Lyon. Oh, I keep calling Gabriel. Sorry, it's Gabrielle.
Gabrielle. Yep.
Gabrielle and Jamie Seaman,
Yep.
and even Christy. You're doing workouts with her. This is super important, and I want to hear you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these women are all friends of mine. I developed a workshop with Dr. Lyon literally about this, not directly for women, but for just about muscle and protein and why they're so important. And I developed a 12-week program with another friend of mine that's literally all about muscle building for women, because we realize that this is, again, something that is actually quite rare. If you look at the fitness industry, there are a billion workout programs, PDFs you can download, whatever. But for women specifically, to teach women about what they need to build muscle on their body in a comprehensive way, like we're not just like sending you a 12-week workout program and saying hop to it. Like it's a very like involved process where we talk about nutrition and recovery and mindset and fitness culture and physiology and hormones and all of these things. Like that could be a whole other podcast. But I think ultimately the food part of it, we have to remember that we as a culture have taught women for so long that there's one way to be feminine and look good, and that's to be small, and that's to be toned, whatever that means. I have like whole diatribes about that too. But that we don't encourage women to be strong necessarily, or there's a very narrow view of what strong is supposed to be. And nutritionally, we teach women that we need to be small and light and restrict what we eat in order to look a certain way. And it is impossible for anyone of any gender to severely restrict what they eat and think that they're going to build muscle tissue out of nowhere. We have this like fear that like the second we start eating steaks, we're going to look like a dude and we're going to get super bulky and, you know, it's whatever. I'm like, if that could happen, there would be so many bulky men and women just crushing it because we want to get big, right? And I tell people, I've literally had women come up to me in the gym because I've been a gym rat for my entire adult life. And I've always lifted weights. That was always my thing because I wanted to have muscle. I grew up like watching American Gladiator and like World's Strongest Man. And like, that's what I was into. I wanted to be like She-Ra, you know, I wanted to have muscle. And I'd have women kind of come up to me and say like, hey, you know, what kind of workouts do you do to like look good and toned and fit? And like, I'm really scared about getting like big and bulky. And I literally will ask them, I'm like, no judgment, but like, do you think I'm a little bit bulky? And they're like, no, that's why I asked you. Like, you're toned and you look great. And I'm like, I am lifting the heaviest weights I possibly can and eating all of the meat. And this is what I can barely do. You know what I mean? Like, you are not going to get bulky by accident. It has never happened. Or if you do, again, it's nutritionally, it's not from working out. So I try to lead by example. And I also try to lead with like common sense, science, and fact, rather than it's easy to get like frustrated and tell people like, oh my God, stop doing Pilates, like just lift a weight. Like, and I want to say that sometimes, but telling people that what they're doing is dumb or ineffective or whatever, like that doesn't change people's attitudes. So instead, it's like, if I can come at it from like a very factual perspective of these are the amino acids you need. These are the like bare minimum calories your body needs to function. If you are not eating those amino acids, if you are not eating those basic functioning amount of calories, what makes you think you're going to go in the gym and create muscle tissue? Like, it's incredibly difficult. So if we can kind of approach it with this, like, again, food is nourishment and fuel, and you have to fuel your body to do the very hard work that is required to build muscle in the gym. Like, it's such hard work. And I think that, again, through this program that we're doing, it's long enough that we're showing women, like, just trust us this once. Just try this method because you've tried the like cardio salad approach and you came to me for a reason. So just try it. And we're seeing like, you know, people are sending us like testimonials and before and after, and they're like, I put muscle on my body and I still fit into the same clothes, or I fit into smaller clothes, but I've got this big bump here on my bicep that I didn't have before. And I'm like, here you go. Love it. I love it. So, you know, it's hard work and it's frustrating work, but like, you gotta unlearn things that you've been taught your entire life. And people are intimidated. They're intimidated to go into a gym and just pick up a weight when they've never done it. They're intimidated to go out and like learn how to cook steak, all of these things. But it's, you know, it's very empowering when you take those risks and you open your mind to do new things. Like when I was making this book, I was intimidated. I walked home with a veal brain in my bag and I was like, what am I doing? You know, how did I get here? And when I made a meal that was delicious and it was successful, I felt really good and I felt really empowered. And that's like a steamroll effect that continues in the rest of your life. You know, when you're willing to kind of step outside your comfort zone and try something different for your health.
You said something, you said you have to unlearn things. I think that, I have a small time with my patients, and I have a lot of young girls that come in, and like, I always try to think, what can I say to really try to open the door to a real lifestyle change? And what I've lately, and I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing, I just bring it up because it's something that I've chosen to say to these young girls. I'm like, look, you know that you are targeted in social media and in marketing. You are targeted. I want, like, look at yourself. You are the target audience. You control, what's the grocery list at the end of the day once there's family, but you also control what restaurant you get taken to for a date or whatever. And there's just a lot of power that the young woman has in our society, and I really believe that, and it is targeted by companies, especially food companies and lifestyle companies. And I try to teach them, I'm like, realize that they're just they're trying to get money out of you. They're not trying to make you healthy. So try to see through that and open your mind to a different way of eating or a different way of looking at your body and your health. And it's kind of like an unpleasant thing to say, but I'm trying to find a button to push where they're like, I'm getting sick. I'm not building muscle. I'm having menstrual issues. I'm having skin issues. I'm having mood issues. I'm all over the place. All my friends are having eating disorders. I'm like, yeah, because this is a problem. They're messing with you. They're literally messing with you so that they can get paid, so that you can push, inadvertently push to you, people around you, these products. And so
Plant-based,
I don't know. Do you
basically.
think that's crazy that I say that to them? Because I really feel like that's what's happening, and that's like the first step, is open your eyes to this.
Well, I mean, it's very true, obviously, that across kind of all spectrums of commerce, women are the main consumers, especially with food and with fitness stuff. So that, again, that's a very like logical kind of starting point. But also from a pragmatic perspective, I would imagine that when, women are coming to you, and certainly when women are coming to me to talk about nutrition and fitness, they're coming to me because they've tried other stuff and it doesn't work, or it works and they go up and down and up and down. And maybe they're seeing me. And again, like the internet isn't real and we all are showing our highlight reels or whatever, but I have never, and I'm very fortunate and I recognize how lucky I am, but I have never had significant nutrition related health issues or mental health issues around my body and food and dysmorphia. And I did competitive bodybuilding for years, and I managed to come out of that with my health and my brain intact, and skin issues and digestive issues and all of these things, because I don't have that story of I was vegan for 10 years and almost died and then I started eating meat. I've just kind of always done this, and as a result, as well as maybe some luck and genetics and all of those things, I've had really consistent health because I've eaten the way that my body has wanted to eat. You know what I mean? So I think that one of the things I do tell clients, like, they come to me because they've seen me, they've heard me on the podcast, they've seen, social media stuff, and they still kind of balk when I'm like, okay, let's eat meat and let's work out heavy. And they're like, wait. And I'm like, you knew what you were getting into when you came to talk to me. Like, what did you think I was going to say? And so I just kind of, with love and with care and patience, I'm like, you came to me for a reason. Other things weren't working. If they were working, if the cardio and salad was working, you wouldn't be talking to me. So just give it a shot. That's it. That's what I'm like. That's literally the main message of this book, is not eat organ meats. It's open your mind to trying new things, be open-minded, and don't consider everything that is different or unfamiliar bad. Like, that's another kind of like human trait that gets us in trouble sometimes, is we think like, oh, this is unfamiliar. This is different from my experience. This is different from what I know. It must be bad. I'm going to like immediately be defensive against it. Instead, just like let yourself think about it and experience it and try and dabble, because you could open your mind and your experience and your health to so many new things. And the risk is literally zero. Like, if you try my plan of eating meat and working out and you hate it, you're right back where you started. Try something else. But if you try it and you like it and it works for you, guess what? Like, you have a completely new path in life that could be great for you. It's such a low risk endeavor and such a high reward potential.
I'm
Absolutely.
so against cardio and salad. The cardio and salad thing is my nightmare.
Miserable, miserable.
Everything about it like hurts me. I have no time for cardio or salad
Yeah,
stuff.
it's
I
the worst.
sprint, I lift weights, I eat meat. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that you said it's so hard to gain muscle, especially as a woman. It's not going to happen by accident. I've said this a million times, and I don't want to speak for women. I'm glad that you said it. It
Hmm.
does not happen by accident. And if you're taking a bunch of steroids and you're lifting every day, maybe you can get too muscular. If
Hmm.
you're not taking a bunch of steroids and lifting every day, you will not get muscular. It is not an easy thing. You
It's
will
the
look
same for
great.
men. I mean, men start out with way more muscle potential and way more testosterone, and you guys still aren't getting super jacked just from like normal lifestyle working out. You have to work hard at it too. Building muscle tissue from thin air takes a lot of work. And so, especially for women who have a fraction of the testosterone and like muscle building potential.
But there's such like this unrealistic bias of what a woman should look like, and I always think, dating myself, but like the '90s, the Kate Moss was the ideal body type. I mean, that was a horribly sick person. That was the ideal body type, or even if she wasn't, she was like a very, very, very rare genetic mix, right? But that was like 90-pound human.
Mm-hmm.
um, I still think that that's like a very prevalent sort of archetype, like physical concept for many women. So when we're saying put on, get bulky, I think that like even a little bit of muscle can scare a lot of women,
Sure.
and I get that a lot. Of women are like, I hear you, Gary. I know it's healthier, but I don't. I want to be like, I want to look like I'm, a little girl. And I'm like, dude, but you're
Yeah.
gonna be sick. You're gonna be sick. There's no way to do that and be healthy or not get an eating disorder. So, man, your message is so important because there's a lot of women struggling with this. Like, it's very, very, very prominent.
I mean, the crappy thing about body image, and I think that this happens with men too. It's just a little bit more intense for women because we just tend to be as a gender more like sexualized and objectified than men. Like you guys certainly still have to like worry about standards of masculinity and am I, whatever. But like women, we've got it a little bit worse, I think. But even
Absolutely.
now, with like the Twiggy thing isn't as in, but now it's like big butts and like big thighs. And, at first it was like, okay, well, we're getting tons of women in here squatting. That's great. Women who aren't worried about being a size zero. That's great. But then, as always, the fake mainstream fitness culture takes whatever the trend is and and makes it so extreme that it's gonna be unhealthy and it's gonna be unattainable because that's the point. The point isn't to create a healthy view of and a wide variety of what women can look like. The point is to take, okay, what is the emerging trend? Let's blow it up to this thing that's unrealistic so that women are striving for something, falling short, and feeling like crap. Because, again, I'm not judging. There's no body shaming going on here whatsoever. Everybody do you. But the trend of like massive ass that is completely out of proportion with the rest of your body, you don't work out anything except butt workouts 5 days a week, like that's not functional. It's not realistic for most people. Most people cannot attain the look that they're seeing on Instagram. So, we can say that we're going to like a slightly healthier place because there's more fit looking women and like size positivity. But I feel like ultimately the mainstream fitness culture for women is always going to promote some version of a body type that most people will feel like they are always falling short of. So it's important to remember at the end of the day too that like your version of healthy and thriving and strong might look a little bit different than whatever Instagram people are showing you. And like life is too short. Don't try to be like other people. I have a relatively athletic physique that's pretty, well tolerated by most people. And I still go to the gym and have old guys being like, hey, why are you working out your shoulders? You've got enough. You don't need to do anymore. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like I still get shit and I don't care because I've been in this long enough that I'm over it. But I can see how like it's never good enough. So stop trying. Like do what works for you because you're never gonna make everybody happy.
And that aesthetic, I'll just add really quick, that aesthetic, that disproportionate aesthetic is half the time modification of the photos, like Photoshop, and a lot of the other time it's cosmetic procedures.
Sure.
Cosmetic.
The
Yep.
so like when I
Implants.
have those
Yeah.
patients too, I know what you're talking about. They're just doing squats obsessively. I'm like, no, 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 no. A lot of those famous people you're seeing, that wasn't
Not
squats.
real.
That
Yeah.
was cash money and a knife.
Yeah.
So, and I'm
It's
not saying
great
that's
that they're doing
everyone,
squats.
but that's a
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
part of
No, it's great they're doing squats. Yeah,
Mhm.
I hate that look. We need to stop normalizing that look. I was in the airport in Mexico City and there was like 2 watermelons hanging out of this girl's pants. Like it looks so bad. I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like this was the fakest implants. It was terrible. Switching subjects here. We have 5 minutes or less. I want to get back to your pregnancy. Dr. Gary alluded to that earlier. Organ meats, what did you eat, how to have a healthy child.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to do a big podcast on my own show, Muscle Maven Radio. I'm going to talk about it because it's been, my son is 4 months old now, so I've been like processing the entire experience and also just like figuring out how to keep a baby alive. So it's like been a whole thing the last few months. But I do have lots of feelings and opinions and thoughts. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling anyone to do exactly what I did, but I do feel strongly that a lot of the, again, fear around what to do, what to eat, what not to eat around pregnancy is based on really kind of outdated and sometimes straight up like false information. When I was pregnant, I was fortunate that I did not experience a whole lot of nausea. And I think some of that is also genetic. It's how well you kind of manage the hormones that are raging in your body. So I was lucky the first trimester. I mean, I still didn't feel too hot, but I wasn't like very sick. And I really didn't have any aversions. I really didn't. And I think that partly that is due to having a whole foods nutrient dense diet. I can't say that that's 100%. I just think that it probably helped that it didn't, I didn't stop eating meat the entire time. I didn't stop eating organ meat the entire time. I ate that always. And I would also say that I think probably my nutrient dense diet helped me get pregnant pretty easily. And this can be a very sensitive subject for people. So I understand. I don't want anyone to think, that they're failing because they didn't do it exactly the way I did. I do think that my lifestyle helped me. That's all I can say, on my end. But so nutritionally, I ate like basically the same, although I did eat a lot more carbs and I'm still eating a lot more carbs because I'm breastfeeding and I'm hungry all the time. And it's a huge amount of energy required to breastfeed. But I felt good that way throughout my pregnancy. I had some like other challenges, I don't even really know how to say this, but I guess I had been out of the gym for about a year before I got pregnant because of the pandemic. And then I got pregnant and I was having just some sort of like ligament muscle issues. He was like very low in my pelvis. It was like painful to kind of walk. So I had some struggles. Like my working out was it was brought down a lot, but I think that I was kind of proud of myself, my ability to kind of check my ego. When I first got pregnant, I was like, this could be #fit pregnancy. I'm going to be crushing pull-ups like when I'm 9 months, like I'm going to be doing this. And it did not go that way. Partly because I literally didn't have access to a gym, but also, my body was working very hard and it was humbling that I thought I was going to be, just crushing like high intensity workouts every day. And that was not the case. I walked a lot. I did mobility stuff a lot, and I did some basic strength work when I could. But I think that my decades of working out leading up to it helped kind of carry me through for sure. And then, we don't have enough time for me to really tell you how it all went, but I ended up having a, unmedicated, pretty zero intervention birth at a birth center with some midwives. And my recovery was about as good and quick and easy as I could have hoped for. I was so lucky. I had a great midwife. I had great support, but I also knew what the hell I was doing because I did a lot of research and a lot of work. And it was the most intense, difficult, crazy thing that I have ever done in my life. I tell a lot of women, I'm like, it's the most amazing thing that I am not feeling like I want to do again. Most amazing thing I've ever done. That I'm like, once is probably good. We'll see. You talk to me in a couple of years. But the recovery was the same thing. I ate a lot. I didn't care about restricting anything, any calories at all. I ate meat. I ate anything that I wanted. I ate carbs. I hydrated. I ate salt. and I slept and I walked and I took it slow. I wasn't like really working out the way I normally would until probably 10, 12 weeks postpartum. I just walked a lot and breathed and worked on my like core strength and like resting, all of the stuff that worked so hard all of those months. And as a result, I feel good. I feel really good. I feel like myself. I feel like I'm going to be back doing 100% of what I want to be doing, you know, within the next few months. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the experience. And I guess my one recommendation, as well as eating organ meats for women, is to do your research and kind of have a plan. A lot of people say like, oh, I don't want to overplan because it could go any way and I don't know. But like, this is the most epic, intense, gnarly thing that a human being can experience. And for you to want to go into it with zero plan or research or idea of what you want, you are setting yourself up for failure. It's like the same as like, if you're going to climb a mountain and you're like, well, it's crazy. Anything could happen. So I'm just not going to plan for it. No, you're going to prep for these things. You're going to, you know, train and understand and like mentally plan. And, you know, so I would recommend that people do that because it really helped me. I knew what was coming during my delivery and birth, and I knew what to expect. And I knew how to heal myself, and I knew all of those things. And I think it really helped me, you know, just be prepared for something that is nuts. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was a big baby too, by the way. Sorry, I just have to say he was also a big baby. I'm a small person, and he was 22 inches and almost 9 pounds. And he was good to go. Healthy, beautiful boy. And I'm very, very happy.
Well, you look super healthy. I hope people are watching this on YouTube. It's on the Food Lies YouTube channel. And I don't think we should discredit, like, you're being too kind and saying, oh, yeah, you know, I eat all this great diet. I do all this stuff. And it just so happened to be that I wasn't sick. I didn't have the nausea. I didn't have this. I had this beautiful, big, healthy baby. No, this is consistent. I have a lot of friends in the ancestral health community that have had kids. They say the same thing. Either it's 100% lucky that every single one of them said, didn't get morning sickness, felt great, super strong, healthy baby. I ate meat, I ate organs, I did it all. This is just how humans should work. This is all the Weston Price stuff. I encourage everyone to read Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. You'll learn about this stuff. We've known this for 100 years in modern society, and all humans have known this for all of history. Anything else, Dr. Gary, on pregnancy and stuff that you've seen?
I think that that was a great story. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A lot of my friends are having kids right now, and we're starting to think about it, and it's really like heartwarming. And I don't know. I think 10 years ago I was like, ooh, kids. Now I'm just love it, and it makes me so excited. And
Same.
it's great. It's great. And thank you for your books. I mean, I really think that's something that a lot of my patients are going to be, using as a resource. And good luck with Carnivore-ish. I look forward to checking that out when that's out.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on and joining us. We love it.
Thank you, guys. It's been a long time coming, so I really appreciate having this opportunity to chat with you guys, and hopefully we'll be able to, get together in person before too long, because I'm tired of this staying in one place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm trying to get back up to Toronto. Maybe there'll be another track meet this coming summer.
Cool.
We'll hang out with Christy and yourself.
Yeah.
Check out Muscle Maven Radio, your podcast, and on Instagram, you're at Muscle Maven.
The Muscle Maven, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. We'll link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashleigh.